All right. So, next thing I want to talk about is the attack matrix. And I see what you're saying. The event IDs are not kept consistent from versions of Windows. That's rude. All right. So if you don't know about it, I imagine everybody knows by now, but if you don't, the attack matrix is really important. When you start with a field that's an art, like security is an art and not a science, if you want to turn it into a science, the first step in science is taxonomy. You just take whatever you have and you sort it into categories. And that's what this is. This sorts the things attackers do into categories. So you have tactics and techniques. These are the tactics, things like reconnaissance, execution, persistence, privilege escalation, defense evasion, and so on. So those are things bad guys do when they attack your network, and here's the techniques they use, like drive-by compromise, hardware additions, phishing, and so on. So this is just a list of techniques, and of course all my students and anybody in the business should be familiar with essentially everything in this chart. At first I thought this was overwhelming and daunting, and then I realized almost all of these are things we know about anyway. Hijack execution flow, process injection, scheduled jobs, using valid accounts. These are all techniques people should understand. And so I don't expect them to memorize this chart, but I expect my students to have some practice using it. And so I just made some challenges here where you just look up things on that chart. Like here, you look up some tactics. So this one says, what tactic uses this technique? Gather victim org information. And you can look for it or even search for it. There's a search button. So if I gather victim, and it's slow because it's doing the search live. Okay, gather victim identity information. And what I asked about was gather victim org information. So let's try org. Okay, gather victim org information. Here it is. You can read about it, and it is a part of Renaissance, or reconnaissance, which is what I'm looking for. So once you've found it, it is part of reconnaissance, which should be here. So that's right. And after you get 5 in a row right, a flag will appear. So this is just a way to practice these things. These are tactics. Then you can go into detail into the techniques for a few tactics at a time, and then into groups. The groups are attack groups, APT groups. You'll find them up here. So, Mandiant found the first APT1 after the Google hack in 2010, and then people found more of them, and Mandiant named them with APT numbers, but other people started using other systems like these things. And the kittens are, I think, Iran, and the bears are Russia, and the pandas are China. And there's all these different groups, and you can read about the groups and their techniques and what type of organizations they attack and so on. And this is all threat intelligence that people should know. These days, it is considered a good thing to attribute your attacks. When you get attacked by APTs, you figure out who's attacking you, and it helps you predict future attacks and decide what sort of defenses are appropriate and so on. So these just give you some practice. Now, one thing that's a little more interesting, this is just practice using all the search engines and wandering through the attack matrix, so hopefully you begin to become familiar with those terms. The navigator is kind of fun. Attack navigator is here, and I have a walkthrough here, which we'll see if this walkthrough is up to date enough. I think it is. So we start on this page, Attack Navigator. And what this can do is compare two groups. So here's the navigator. Good. So I create a new layer. And I want Enterprise. But I sort of wanted to make sure I got Enterprise V9. Right, so I didn't do that right. Let me go back. I'll just start over, because I got to make sure I get the right version or my flags won't work. And V9 may no longer be the latest version. So it's start with Navigator. Okay, and create new layer, expand it. Here's more options. There, Enterprise version 9. Yeah, that's what I thought. Now there is up to version 11, but for this project you really need version 9. So it is Enterprise, Att&Ck 9 Enterprise is what you want. Att&Ck v9 Enterprise. There we go. Now we got the right one for Enterprise here. So create. Okay, this creates a spreadsheet looking thing. Yeah, there we are, which has all these techniques, and it has a whole bunch of buttons, but this is pretty simple. I only use 2 buttons, and it's this one, the search button, to find a group, and this one, the one that puts colors on it. Third from the right and second from the left are the only ones I use. So, first, you choose search and choose a group of interest like APT41. This will choose you who you'd like to investigate. So if you search, you'll see people here. These are techniques, and here's threat groups down below it. So I'm going to get APT41. Threat groups are here. Okay, and there's the APTs. So there's APT41. Select. And now you see little blue outlines appear around the things that APT41 does. And I'm done with this pane. I would close it if I could figure out how. There probably is. Oh, probably click this thing again, maybe? Yeah, okay, good. So now I've highlighted the APT41. Now I want to click the scoring button and assign it a score of 1. And the scoring button is the one third from the right, the only other button I ever use. However, they appear to have moved it. The scoring button looks like that. It is here. That's scoring. It's now third from the left in techniques. So I can now give it a score of 1 if it's in APT41 and it highlights them. All right. And now I can rename this layer by just double clicking. This is APT41. Whoops, should let me change the name. Oops, I deleted it. All right, I'm going to try again. Create new layer. Att&Ck v9 Enterprise, create. Okay. Search for APT41. All right. Select. Now go to scoring and give it a score of 1. Okay, get rid of that. Now, I would like to rename this layer, which I used to be able to do by clicking or double-clicking on that name. There we are. APT. Nope, still won't seem to let me rename it anymore. That's rude. All right, anyway, I guess we'll get by. All right, APT of 1. All right. At the top left, click the tab label and change its name. Yeah, it's hard if you can't change the label of a tab. Click and type. Nope. How rude. Double click and type. Nope. All right. That's going to be confusing. That one's really APT41. And somehow they've taken away the ability. You see something? It's the drop down on the right where you click on the name. Under layer controls. Oh, okay. Good. Thank you. So is there any way to get back to that? Oh, I had to rename it when I first created it, maybe? Under layer controls. The drop down on the right. Not this thing, I guess. Drop down on the right. Layer controls. Oh, layer controls. Oh. They keep moving stuff around. Everybody in tech has ADD. Sorting alphabetically, colors, expand, 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 collapse, layer information. Ah, okay, good. All right, so I'll have to add that to my instructions. Good, thank you. All right, and now I guess click this to get rid of that. Okay, good. Thank you. Good. All right. So now that's APT41. Good. Now, I add a new layer and give it APT29 for 2. Let me see if I can do that. I add a new layer. Att&Ck v9. Okay. All right. And I'm going to name it APT2, I think. APT29 for 2. Okay, APT29. Okay. and I want to make it equal to APT29, so I go here. Okay. And now I give it a score of 2. There. Okay. So now I have this layer. This is what APT41 does. This is what APT29 does. And now I want to compare them so I can create a calculated layer by taking A plus B. So I add a layer, and it's going to be a create layer from other layers. And it's going to be Enterprise Attack 9. And here's my score. This is A and this is B. So this is going to be A plus B. And that should do it. Create. And there we are. Now I get, this is what I wanted. Now there's 3 colors. So 41 and 29. And this is a score of 3. Green are things where they both do. 1 is things that only 41 does. And yellow is things that only 29 does. So now you can answer questions. And there's a series of questions to answer that require you to use that tool so you get practice with it. And so here, which execution technique was used by the software NotPetya? All right. So this just uses 1 layer. And some of these actually use multiple layers. So I'm just going to answer anything to move on. Yeah, this is the kind of thing. What evasion technique is used by both Bundlor and Att&Ck, and that tool is useful for this. So again, this gives you some practice using the navigator. And all right, so that gives you some practice with Att&Ck, and that's it for this section. I'm going to stop this video.